Forget no contact. This will break him faster. Ladies, I'm going to say something that might sound controversial. Forget no contact. Not because it doesn't work, but because you're not here to play games. You're not here to sit in silence hoping that he suddenly realizes your worth while you shrink yourself in the shadows. The truth is, silence doesn't break him. Power does. Confidence does. Clarity does. Power, what breaks a man faster, and I mean emotionally shakes him, wakes him up, is seeing you fully step into your life. It's when he watches you stop orbiting him. It's when you don't beg, don't block, but also don't wait. It's when you start choosing yourself, not pretending to, not faking confidence on Instagram stories, but truly showing up in your real life, at work, with your friends, in your passions, like he was never the center of your world to begin with. See, what confuses a man most is not your silence, it's your peace. It's seeing you not angry, not spiteful, but beautifully, unapologetically detached. That's when he realizes he's lost something real, and maybe, just maybe, he never had a grip on you at all. So no, don't go no contact. Go self-contact. Go life contact. Go confidence contact. Be visible, be vibrant, be free, and I promise you, that hits harder than any block number ever could. When people talk about no contact, they often see it as a strategy to get someone back, a move in a game that's meant to trigger fear of loss. But here's the thing, when you approach it that way, you're still centering your actions around him. You're still reacting. The power you think you're gaining by cutting contact is actually rooted in hope. Hope that your silence will make him miss you, want you, chase you. And in that hope, there's still emotional dependence. That's not strength. That's still waiting. Real power doesn't come from silence. It comes from a shift in mindset. It's the difference between doing something to get a reaction and doing something because you know who you are and what you deserve. When you stop trying to make him feel your absence and instead focus on making yourself feel full, that's when everything changes. Instead of, I won't contact him so he comes back, the mindset becomes, I'm not contacting him because I'm finally focused on me. You're not using time apart as a tool of manipulation. You're using it as a space for transformation. And that energy, that grounded, self-assured confidence, that's what really shakes someone. Because suddenly you're no longer playing by the emotional rules he was expecting. He thought silence meant you were still waiting, still hurting, still stuck. But when you stop acting from a place of lack and instead move from a place of worth, the entire dynamic shifts. You begin to see that you don't need to hide or sulk or disappear to prove something. You can be fully present in your own life. You can grow, create, connect, and evolve. Not for anyone else, but because that's what you deserve. You don't need to punish him with your absence. You elevate yourself with your presence in your job, your friendships, your routines, your dreams. And what that does, more than silence ever could, is make him realize that the version of you he had access to is now far beyond his reach. Not because you're punishing him, but because you've simply outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated less. The irony? That's what actually breaks him. Not your silence, not your coldness, but your radiance, your freedom, your peace. Because now you're not quiet and waiting. You're busy and becoming. When someone loses access to you and expects silence, they often brace themselves for anger, for withdrawal, maybe even for some kind of dramatic reaction. What they don't expect is to see you glowing, alive, fully immersed in your life without skipping a beat. That's where the real emotional impact lies. It's not in your absence, it's in your undeniable presence somewhere else. When you stop making him the center of your emotional world and start pouring that energy into yourself, your environment shifts. And when he sees that shift, not hears about it, not imagines it, but actually sees it, it forces him to realize something has changed. in a way he can't control. A woman living her life unapologetically, laughing with friends, taking care of herself, setting goals, showing up fully, is a force that's impossible to ignore. And when that woman used to be emotionally tethered to him, that hits even harder. It disrupts the ego's sense of control. He's no longer the point of reference for how you feel or behave. You've become self-referencing. You're not waiting to be chosen. Self-referencing. You're out there choosing yourself. That image not of bitterness, not of silence, but of happiness and grounded confidence. That's what leaves a mark. It's not just about what he sees on the surface either. It's the energy you carry when you stop trying to be seen by him and start truly seeing yourself. There's a difference between faking confidence online and embodying it in real life. When you wake up excited about your day, when you start meeting people who inspire you, when your standards silently rise, that is real and it's magnetic. Not just to him, but to the world. He sees that you're not frozen in heartbreak. You've turned the page without him. And that's what breaks his illusion that he could come back anytime and find you exactly where he left you. People can handle anger, they can handle silence, but what they struggle with most is seeing someone they thought they had power over become completely unaffected. That's the moment he realizes he's no longer relevant in the way he once was. And when you stop orbiting him and start building your own center of gravity, he's left spinning, not because you punished him, but because he sees now that you've reclaimed everything he thought he had a piece of. There's a quiet kind of strength that's far more powerful than yelling, blocking, or giving the cold shoulder. And when you're no longer triggered by his presence or absence, when you stop reacting to his messages, his silence, or his mixed signals, you become unpredictable in the most empowering way. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming numb or cold. It's about reclaiming your emotional energy. It's about standing in a place where his behavior no longer dictates your mood, your day, or your self-worth. That's what genuinely breaks him. Not your anger, not your revenge, but your calm indifference. When someone expects emotional chaos from you and instead finds peace, it shakes them. They can't manipulate peace. They can't argue with it. They can't use it to get a reaction. Peace is power because it's not performative. It's internal. It says, I no longer need you to be any particular version of yourself for me to be okay. And that is the one thing people don't know how to handle. When you're no longer asking for closure, answers, or validation. You're just done, not loudly, but deeply. The truth is, emotional detachment is often mistaken for not caring, but it's actually a sign that you've started caring more about yourself. You've stopped trying to fix, explain, or prove your worth to someone who never truly saw it. And now, your silence isn't cold. It's warm, grounded, and full of self-respect. That's where the real shift happens. When he realizes he can't shake you anymore. He can't throw off your balance. He no longer has emotional leverage because you've taken your power back without saying a single dramatic word. What cuts deeper than a blocked number or ignored message is the realization that your heart is no longer available to him. That you're not faking detachment to get his attention. You've actually healed. You're no longer tied to his potential, his promises, or his problems. That's what breaks his illusion of control. He's not the one who ended things. You did, emotionally, energetically, and completely. And when he sees that he can no longer provoke a rise out of you, that your peace is real and untouchable, it forces him to confront the truth he's been avoiding. You've outgrown the version of yourself that once needed him. There is something deeply unsettling and incredibly powerful about watching someone you thought would be devastated without you become completely at peace. Not just fine, not just functioning, but thriving. When a man sees that you're not bitter, not trying to prove a point, not waiting for closure, but instead you've found your own peace and happiness. That's what really hits. Because peace is the one thing he didn't expect. He might have anticipated silence or even some anger. He might have thought you'd post curated moments just to make him jealous. But true peace, that throws him off. Because peace isn't performance. It's not about him at all. It's about you reclaiming your life. When you're peaceful, you send a silent but unmistakable message. I'm not hurting anymore. And I didn't need you to fix it. That kind of emotional freedom is rare. It's magnetic. And it's confusing to someone who assumed your world would pause in his absence. The moment he sees that your smile is real, your energy is steady, and you're no longer emotionally entangled with him, he starts to feel the full weight of the loss. Not because you told him, but because he can feel it. Peace shows that you've processed everything, the pain, the confusion, the disappointment, and come out the other side without needing revenge, without needing attention. That kind of healing is undeniable. It's not loud, but it's powerful. Because while drama can be dismissed as emotional immaturity or attention seeking, peace is maturity. It's strength. It's clarity. And most importantly, it's evidence that you've let go, not in words, but in energy. When a man sees that you're genuinely at peace, it challenges his sense of control. He no longer has emotional access to you. He can't trigger you. He can't guilt you. He can't reach you in the same way because you're not on the same level anymore. You've moved on internally, and that's something no amount of messages, apologies, or attempts to reconnect can undo. What really breaks him is the realization that you didn't just survive without him, you evolved. You didn't just disappear. You rebuilt. And now you're unshaken, unbothered, and unavailable, not physically, but emotionally. Your peace is not the result of a new distraction or rebound. It's the result of healing, self-respect, and finally understanding that you were always enough, with or without him. The goal was never to break him. It was to stop breaking yourself for someone who couldn't meet you where you stood. But the truth is, nothing leaves a deeper mark than watching someone rise so far beyond the version of themselves that once settled for crumbs. That's not revenge, that's growth. That's what truly leaves him stunned. When he realizes that the woman who once tolerated inconsistency, who once waited, who once questioned her own worth, no longer lives in that emotional space. You've elevated. Quiet, consistently. And now he's no longer able to reach you, not because you blocked him, but because your standards outgrew his comfort zone. When someone loses you and assumes you'll always be within reach, they never truly fear losing you until they see that you've changed, not temporarily, but fundamental. When you start making decisions from a place of self-worth instead of longing, when your time becomes filled with purpose, joy, and people who reflect your value, you become unreachable, not physically, but emotionally and spiritually. You no longer crave validation from him because you've built your confidence from within. That's what really breaks him. The awareness that he had access to a version of you that no longer exists, and that access isn't coming back. You didn't become someone else. You just became more of who you were always meant to be. And now, the things that once made you chase or cling or wait don't even tempt you. He can no longer breadcrumb you into confusion. He can no longer lure you in with half effort or nostalgia. Why? Because you finally believe that love shouldn't cost you your dignity, your peace, or your identity. And that belief has changed everything. He's not just missing your presence. He's missing your former self. The one who would have said yes even when it hurt, who would have held space for him in the hopes he'd grow. But now that woman doesn't live here anymore. She's been replaced by someone who has boundaries, who doesn't confuse connection with compatibility, who no longer lowers herself just to be kept. That's the real break, not your silence, not your distance, but your transformation. Because once you've raised your standards, healed your wounds, and embraced your worth, there's no version of him that feels big enough anymore, unless he rises too. And often, by the time he realizes that, you've already moved far beyond the space where he left you. So if you came here thinking silence would be your strongest weapon, think again. The real shift happens when you stop focusing on how to him and start focusing on how to rebuild yourself. Your glow up isn't about revenge. It's about remembrance. Remembering who you were before you started shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone. It's about rising, not reacting. When he finally looks back and sees that you've moved on, not with bitterness, but with brilliance, that's the moment it hits. That's the moment he realizes the door didn't just close, it disappeared. And maybe, just maybe, you'll get to a point where you don't even care if it breaks him anymore because you're too busy building something stronger, higher, and far more beautiful than any version of love that made you forget yourself. Thank you for giving your time, your heart, and your focus today. If you take anything with you, let it be this. You don't win by proving your worth to someone else. You win by never doubting it again. Take care of yourself, protect your peace, and remember, the most powerful thing you can ever do is move on without